Welcome back. Women are delaying their timelines for childbirth longer and longer these days. Now, for some, the safest way to bring a child into their home has actually become adoption. The executive director of the adoption consultancy, Nicole Witt, joins us now to talk about those opportunities and the guidance that exists for hopeful moms. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me back. It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you too. What are some of the factors that I guess you've seen over the last couple of years that have led to people waiting so long to try to have kids?
Yeah, well, there are a few different things. I mean, the birth rate in this country has been dropping significantly for decades. The average age of childbearing has increased as women have, more opportunities for education and to focus on career and so on. I think one of the other factors, especially with social media and so on, is seeing celebrities and people in Hollywood having babies so much later in life. And it's totally their prerogative to not talk about maybe how that came about, but I think that gives a little bit of a misinformation about, okay, it's easy to get pregnant in your 40s, and it's not.
It's not at all, and sometimes it can lead to high-risk pregnancies as well. So what are the benefits of adoption versus a potentially high-risk situation?
So I think when women decide they want to start a family and they talk to their doctor, a lot of times they're surprised when they find out, if they're past their mid-30s, what kind of risks they're looking at for themselves and for the baby. So adoption, most women who are placing their babies for adoption are in their 20s. And obviously I'm not trying to downplay all the other aspects that go into adoption, but solely from a health perspective, that can be a much healthier pregnancy for the birth mom and for the baby than a woman in her 40s going through a pregnancy.
Yeah, definitely. And let's talk about the sense of a quote-unquote traditional family. There are so many non-traditional families that we see in our country these days. So how does adoption fit into the timeline of them building a family more seamlessly?
Yeah, and that's kind of the upside, I think, to all of this. The non-traditional families are so much more common and more accepted that it takes some of the pressure off of a woman. So if she decides, I want to start a family when I'm 40 or whatever, maybe she'll have a partner then, maybe she won't, maybe she'll look at adoption or surrogacy or donor gametes, but it takes some of that pressure off about, this is the path that has to happen prior to me starting my family. So it just opens up a lot of options for people.
It does. So let's talk, you mentioned a path. Let's talk about the path for adoption. It can be a little daunting.
Yes.
I know that firsthand. It's intimidating. What are the resources that are available for people that want to take this journey?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to work with a reputable, experienced team of people who can help you. I'm an adoption consultant. There are adoption consultants out there that can help. There are fertility consultants. You can reach out to adoption agencies. If you're interested in foster adoption, you can reach out to your local child services department, but just definitely make sure that you're working with experienced, ethical professionals.
For sure. And now, I mentioned that I've adopted before, and I think back to those months leading up to it, and I adopted a newborn, but it's an emotional journey too. It's not just about the paperwork that you have to fill out. Tell us about, realistically, some of the highs and lows that people can expect through adoption.
Yeah, I mean, the lows are, the lowest of the lows is when a placement falls through, when they're expecting to adopt that baby and the birth mom chooses to parent, which is totally, of course, within all of her rights. But that's really difficult on the adoptive parents. And the best days are, for them when the adoptions go through, and my clients go home with their baby. Those are the best days of, the work that I do. But there is so much in between there, and it's so important to have a support network to understand what all members of the situation are going through, so you can be empathetic and supportive to everyone.
For sure. And I know that we've kind of emphasized babies here in this segment so far, but adoption is really for different age groups. And maybe there are couples that say, I don't want the weight and the task of a newborn. Let's talk about adopting at all ages.
Yeah, so with private domestic adoption is almost always newborns. If you're talking about older children, that's usually either international adoption or foster adoption. International adoption has dried up a lot over the last few years. There's still some programs. Those children tend to be maybe in the 1 to 5 year old range, although there are certainly older children as well, whereas foster adoption tends to be a bit older than that. So it really kind of depends on what's the best fit for your family.
Okay, and it's all about just kind of knowing what fits into your boundaries and then getting those resources. And I know you're so great at providing those. So
Nicole, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And you can hear more from her on the Adopting the Podcast. She hosts episodes which are available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Daytime will be right back.